The Inquisition isn't one organization. It's several, and they were never meant to work together. Across a million worlds, three major branches quietly decide who lives, who burns, and what gets buried before anyone else finds out. There are dozens of minor Ordos, many of which barely exist in surviving records. Here are the major Ordos that make up the Inquisition what they do, and why they'll turn on each other without warning. A world goes dark for 6 days. No transmissions, no ships in or out. When contact finally returns, half the population is dead, and the other half doesn't remember the last week of their lives. That's a Malleus case. This Ordo exists for one purpose: daemons. Not corrupted priests, not cultists, entities that cross over from the warp itself. Their weapons are built specifically for that fight, blessed and inscribed, useless against a normal enemy, and devastating against something that isn't fully in reality. Their strike force is the Grey Knights, created in secret in the years after the Horus Heresy. Most people assume they came later, built for some famous war. They didn't. They were already old by the time most of the Imperium had ever heard the name. Here's the part almost nobody knows. Grey Knights officially don't exist. There's no public record. A soldier can serve for 30 years and never learn they're real. And Malleus agents don't just fight daemons, they study them. Someone has to recognize a possession before it becomes an outbreak, which means the people most educated about chaos are also the ones most exposed to it. It's a job that slowly costs you the thing it's protecting. Now, picture the opposite kind of threat. Nothing crossing in from outside. Something already growing on the inside. A governor who's been listening to the wrong advisors. A cult hiding behind a temple's front doors. This branch traces back to the age of apostasy, when a fraud seized the imperial throne and nearly brought the whole system down before Sebastian Thor stopped it. Out of that crisis came the Adepta Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle. They aren't formally part of the Inquisition. They belong to the Ecclesiarchy. But in practice, they fight beside Hereticus more than anyone else, because Hereticus needed an army that couldn't be turned by whatever it was hunting. And here's the hardest question this Ordo has to answer. How do you spot heresy before it happens? A governor raises taxes too fast, people start whispering about revolt. Is that heresy? Or is that just politics? Get that wrong, and an entire world can be purged for something that was never really there. Ordo Xenos, a mining crew on a border world, breaks into a buried structure and finds a device that could power an entire city for free. Except nobody human built it. Within a week, an Ordo Xenos agent is standing over that hole in the ground. That's the job, not fighting orcs or tyrannids in open war. That's the military's problem. Xenos handles contact, artifacts, and the moments when humans start relying on something that isn't human at all. A trade world quietly switches to alien tech because it's cheaper. A cult forms around something that isn't the Emperor. All of it lands on a Xenos desk before it ever becomes public. Some of the Inquisition's most famous figures came from Ordo Xenos, where years spent studying alien threats often blurred the line between understanding the enemy and becoming dangerously close to it. And the uncomfortable truth is this: agents who understand an alien species well enough to predict them end up understanding them better than doctrine ever officially allows. Most people stop at 3. That's not the whole picture. And it never will be. Some of these branches are so obscure, their own records barely survive. But two are worth knowing. Ordo Sepulturum exists for something specific: outbreaks like the zombie plague, where the threat isn't a person or a daemon, it's a biological horror, spreading faster than it can be contained. Ordo Machinum works alongside the Adeptus Mechanicus, watching for rogue AI and tech priests who start worshipping their machines a little too literally. Past that, the trail goes cold on purpose. A complete map of the Inquisition is exactly what an enemy would want. This is the part that actually matters. There's no single command structure over the whole Inquisition, no shared chain of authority. Each Ordo runs independently, with its own leadership, its own funding, its own agents answering to nobody outside the branch. Picture 3 separate intelligence agencies working the same city, each one holding full legal authority to arrest the others, and none of them required to explain why. So say a planet gets hit with a daemon incursion. A Malleus Inquisitor arrives wanting to quarantine the site and study the possession. This kind of data is rare, and it might save the next world. A Hereticus Inquisitor arrives an hour later, and in the most extreme cases, is willing to push for exterminatus, the last resort, wiping the planet clean rather than risk it spreading. Both of them outrank everyone else on that planet. Neither one has to justify the call to the other. Sometimes the argument gets settled with words. Sometimes it doesn't. This is basically what happens when different branches of the same government all have arrest powers over each other, but no shared boss. Everyone technically works for the same side, and none of them actually trust each other. Nobody built this system to be efficient. They built it so no single point of failure could take the whole Inquisition down at once, even if that means 2 Inquisitors occasionally point weapons at each other instead of the actual threat. An Inquisitor doesn't get a manual. They get authority, the power to seize a planet, command an army, execute a governor on the spot, and almost no oversight on how it's used. A Hereticus interrogator might spend 3 years undercover inside a cult, speaking its prayers every night, close enough to it that even they stop being sure where the act ends. A Xenos agent might spend a decade learning a species well enough to respect them, then be the one who signs the order for their extermination anyway, because the official record has no space for that kind of complication. Some of these agents never see a homeworld again. They're reassigned from case to case for decades until their investigation becomes their entire identity. Most Inquisitors never get remembered for any of it. Their wins get sealed as classified. Their mistakes get handed to whoever inherits the wreckage. Here's the truth every Ordo agrees on. Even when they agree on nothing else, humanity survives, because someone is willing to make the call nobody else wants to make. Study the daemon or burn the world. Trust the alien or assume the worst. Report the truth or bury it before it spreads. And still, underneath all of that, there are people in this. Agents who remember the first world they served on, who write letters to family they'll never see again, who believe, quietly, that the decision they just made kept someone else's home standing one more day. The Inquisition was never built to make the Imperium good. It was built to make sure someone's still around to argue about what good even means. If your planet was in danger, which Ordo would you actually want answering the distress call?